Hello everybody, Chris Nelson here. We have some updates to kind of recap 2020 as well as get some announcements out for 2021. We have quite a few things to go over in this video, so we are going to break it up into sections. Wherever this is posted, whether it is YouTube, Facebook, you should be able to look below and there will be a timestamp there. So if you just want to know about certain specific things, you can go to that timestamp and not have to watch this entire video. I will recap right now everything we're going to talk about. That way you kind of know whether you should just skip forward or whether you want to watch the entire thing. The first thing we're going to talk about is junior handler funding / donations for championships. There are some equipment specification updates that are also going to be talked about. Some age restriction updates. COVID rules staying in place. Some championships updates. VT in regards to top 10. And then also some updates in regards to toys in the ring. So if you're curious about all of those things, you could just hang out for this whole video. And if you only want to know about certain things, go ahead and just look down below the video, see the timestamp where you want to go, and then you can fast forward and you can have a little shorter condensed version rather than this entire video. Also, I apologize, I'm not staring directly into the camera the entire time. I do have my notes off to the side here, so I'm probably going to have to kind of check in periodically. So our first thing, junior handler funding. We really like to support our junior handlers as much as we possibly can. So we started a program last year that unfortunately did not get to be used because championships did not happen in 2020. But I started it with all the trials that I hosted, where basically if we had enough ring help, we weren't begging for workers, we would donate $300 per trial towards a fund that would cover the expenses for junior handlers to come to the event. We then expanded that when we started mailing out all of the title certificates and awards on a more regular schedule. There's a lot of people that just don't really want those. They either don't want their awards or they don't want the title certificates, one of each, whatever the case may be. So what we also did is any money that we did not spend because we did not send out those awards or those title certificates also got donated into that fund. And then COVID happened. And that is kind of what we're talking about today. The fund, just from those first two things that we talked about, it definitely covers some expenses, but it definitely wasn't going to make it a free trip for anyone. It also, depending on how many junior handlers we got, if we had 15 junior handlers show up, which would be pretty rare, that hasn't happened in a lot of years. But if it did, we're basically going to give them $100, which isn't the greatest. But then COVID happened. So when COVID happened, we were not sure what was going to be happening financially with Nadac because trials completely ceased for at least 6 weeks for the period that we personally canceled them. And then probably another at least 5 to 6 weeks after that, just from clubs making judgment calls to not hold events. So there was a pretty long stretch there with zero income from trials, which is kind of what pays all of our bills monthly. So in those first few weeks when we were kind of completely stressed about where money would come from, we opened up a page for donations. And everyone was very generous. We got enough donations to kind of make us through the month. And then once we got the VT program to a point where it could support Nadac, we started refunding all of those donations. I really don't like taking money from people if they're not getting something back. So we refunded the majority of those. But we did give people the option that if they did not want the refund for their donation and they wanted us to keep the money, we would take all of that money and put it into the junior handler fund. So in 2021, we would have a larger stockpile of cash to cover expenses for our junior handlers. And a lot of people took that option. I would say at least 1/2 to 3/4. Don't have an exact number in front of me. But what it means is in 2021, we are going to be able to cover a lot of expenses for our junior handlers. Typically, we get somewhere between 7 to 9 junior handlers each year. Right now, assuming a certain base level for expenses, hotel costs, food and all that, I believe we're going to be able to cover at least 8 completely, like they will not have to pay anything to come. And the real goal is that maybe this would be able to allow more junior handlers to come. It is a financial burden coming to championships. There's a lot involved, mainly in lodging and travel, fuel costs, everything else. So what we're really hoping for is we'll be able to help out financially to our juniors who are pretty much there year in, year out. And maybe we can get a few new people there who maybe couldn't make it because of financial reasons. So how it will work is which will come later, once we know championships is happening, we'll figure out how many junior handlers are coming, and all of that money will be split evenly. We're not going to do any kind of this person gets more, this person gets less. It's going to be a complete even donation up to the point of their expenses. We're not going to pay you to be there. We're only going to pay you for what it costs you to get there. And then obviously we're going to have to put a cap on that for reasonable expenses. We're not going to be putting you up in the Hilton. So there's going to be kind of a per diem in regards to hotels, fuel, food. Your entry costs should be completely covered, so you should be good there. But ideally, we'll get a lot more junior handlers this year. I believe that is it for that update. Yep, that's it for that update. So we really hope that turns out well. We would also like to thank, there are a couple clubs who just completely randomly said that they wanted to donate money to Nadac, which is very kind of them, but we have taken all that money and that does go directly into the Junior Handler Fund. So everyone who has donated to Nadac, we really appreciate it. It was an amazing thing for you to do, and you will be helping the sport continue to grow and bring in new handlers to our big championship events. So we really appreciate that. That was a great job, everybody. All right, my video editing skills are not the best, but hopefully we did this correctly and you notice there's a little bit of a jump. I'm probably in a different position from where I was a second ago. Hopefully, if we did this right. Our next little bit here is on equipment specification updates. There's really nothing updated here. We're not necessarily changing anything. Just some of the things that we've been recommending for quite a while now. Some of those are going to be required at a later date. Let's get into it. First off, we have made a new document that is outside of the actual rule book. That covers all of the equipment specs and guidelines. So we removed it from the rule book. That way it's just a little easier to digest and easier for us to update as need be. So you can find that on the Nadac website. It should be under rule books and it should just be right there on that drop down. Couple of things that are being updated / being recommended a little more forcefully. Tunnel bagging requirements are in this document along with pictures. It seems like this always gets kind of confused when we tell people there needs to be 4 sets of bags. That gets kind of misconstrued as whether that is this 1, 2, is this a set or is both a set? So it just gets confused for some reason. So that is now in there with pictures, and there's big text that says allowed, not allowed. And also minimum requirements. So a 15-foot tunnel would need to have a minimum of 4 sets of bags on that tunnel. A set is a set. 2 bags together is a set. So a 15-foot tunnel needs to have a minimum of 4, and a 20 will need to have a minimum of 5. Now, if clubs would like to use more bags than that, they are allowed. You can use as many as you like. If you like to have a discussion about this, feel free to jump on the forum and we can explain our reasoning. But it's pretty well known at this point that fewer bags is not necessarily the best thing because dogs tend to slip and then that causes issues. We do have some really lovely video that kind of shows that in action from dogs hitting a part of the tunnel where there is no bag, and then their feet just kind of slip under them, and it's pretty ugly. You get lots of really nasty injuries from that. So those are the minimums. If clubs would like to use more, they're more than welcome to. There's no issue with that. We have been recommending plastic jump standards, uprights, stanchions, whatever you like to call them, for quite a while. We've been using them at our championship events. We've used them for all our personal trials for quite some time. Starting in June of 2023, so that's 2.5 years from now. So quite a bit of time, 30 months. That will be required. So metal jumps will no longer be allowed in 2.5 years. Obviously, we would encourage clubs to replace metal jumps with plastic as soon as they can, because it is kind of a well-known safety issue. The main issue there is that all of the metal jumps, at least the typical design that most everyone uses, has your uprights with a bottom bar connecting them. That is a metal bar welded on connecting the stanchions. The issue is that they weigh enough that when a dog hits a cup, regardless of whether it is a metal cup or a plastic cup, rather than the jump moving, it just kind of stays where it is, or it doesn't move enough, so that cup will actually cut into the dog rather than the jump just moving away. Plastic jumps do not have that issue because they do not have the weight associated with them. Even the plastic jumps that are connected on the bottom, I know there's a couple of manufacturers out there who have a bottom connection bar, as well as a lot of just the homemade jumps have a bottom connecting bar. Those just don't have the issue. They don't weigh enough. When a dog hits them, they typically tend to just kind of plop over. So you just don't get the issue so much of dogs cutting themselves on the cups. The entire jump will need to be plastic if you didn't catch what I just mentioned there. So metal jumps with plastic cups will still not be allowed after June of 2023. Whether clubs want to use individual stanchions that are not connected or have a connecting bar on the bottom, there's a solid connection, is still up to them. My personal preference is just to have them not connected, because a dog hits them, it falls over, there's no damage done, there's no risk there. I know some clubs have had some concern using plastic jumps. I don't really like to push out rules until I know that they're going to be decent. I've been using plastic jumps for at least 4, if not 5 years now, possibly more. There's no issue. We've used them in cold weather, hot weather, wind. We have more issues with hoops than we ever do with jumps. Couldn't tell you why. You'd think there would be an issue there too. But there's just really not an issue. And keep in mind, the reasoning why we're going away from metal is because of the weight. I'm just going to get this said now before it happens and we have to amend the rule book. If people start weighing down their plastic jumps to where they're connected stanchions and they're weighed down to where they're just as heavy as metal, you're right back to the same issue. When the dog hits it, it's not going to move. So don't do that. They need to be able to move. I know there are a couple manufacturers out there, I'm not sure they've really taken off yet, who have jump standards that are magnetics to where they just fall over when they're hit. Those are great. But yeah, so that'll be a thing. And clubs have 2.5 years to do this, so it's not an immediate thing financially. And by that time, we are also hoping that we will be in a place financially that we can help clubs with this if they need the help. We'll probably have some kind of an application for that. And then ideally, if things go well, depending on how COVID goes, we will be able to help clubs out a little bit in that regard. Because we really don't like forcing clubs to spend money. It's kind of a rough deal. So we're going to try and help out as much as we possibly can. All right, moving on to our next item. All right, everybody, next item on the list. Age restrictions are going to be changing in June. This is in regards to when you are able to compete. This is a change that's been talked about for a while. We're not utterly confident in it yet here in the office. So this is going to be one of those things that is a preliminary test. Basically, that means we're going to start out slow. If we like what we see, then we may expand this rule. If we do not like what we see, then we will take it back. So how we're going to do this is starting on June 1st, 2021, you will be able to enter the intro level with a dog that is 15 months old. So we're basically just taking that age limit back by 3 months to 15. We know a lot of the other venues do 15 months. I think some might even do 12 with some restrictions. I'm not 100% sure. 15 months is kind of where we are comfortable right now. And like I said, this is preliminary. So if we see a bunch of stuff that we don't like, if we get a bunch of complaints from exhibitors, anything like that, then this one will be right out the door and it's going right back to 18 months. And if we see a bunch of stuff that we do like, then there's not really much to expand here. There's really not a whole lot of places to go. Possibly the farthest we would possibly go is allowing intro and novice, but that would be about it. So that's what will be happening. It'll be a 1-year testing phase. So on June of 2022, we'll come back with an update as to whether that rule will be sticking around or whether it will be going away or expanded, whatever the case may be. We'd like everyone to keep an open mind. There's obviously strong opinions on this on both sides of the board. We kind of see validity to both sides of those opinions. So everyone needs to kind of keep an open mind, see how it plays out, and then we'll make a long-term decision after we are able to view the results of this little test for ourselves, rather than just going purely off of opinion and what ifs. We don't really like to do what ifs. We kind of like to see what would actually happen. So that will be happening as well. And the reason for waiting until June, as we mentioned before in the past, rule changes that don't really affect anyone negatively, we typically just put into place right away. We don't have any kind of a delay. It's only the ones that kind of have a negative effect. Maybe we're tightening up times, maybe we're changing how we judge an obstacle, something like that. Those are the ones where you get a 6-month warning. The reason we are still having to wait 6 months for this change is because all of the software has to be updated. Currently, if you try and enter a dog in a trial who is not 18 months old, it will not even let you. It just throws up a big error. And we really don't want to create a bunch of extra work for our trial secretaries having to put in the wrong birth dates in order to allow it, because then they'd have to go back in and update those. It's just not really worth it. So that one will be waiting. That way all the software people can get everything done on their end and get updates sent out. All right, we are making some progress here. Next up on our list is kind of an update on all of our COVID rules. There's quite a few rules that were put into place in regards to COVID. Not so much put in place, but maybe lifted or kind of softened up. Most of this is in regards to VT runs. We changed quite a bit of that because people were not wanting to go to trials. They just wanted to do stuff in their backyard rather than taking the risk of being infected or infecting someone at a trial. Right now, all of these rules are staying in place, or the current lifting of those rules is staying in place. For January, we still have at least half, if not more, of our trials that have been canceled. It's a pretty large number. It's looking like it's going to be that way for February as well. So for a lot of people, those trialing opportunities are still not there. So we still need to support them with VTs as much as we possibly can. This also stays in place for some of the adjustments we made in regards to judges. Because travel right now is a little bit of an issue, we've allowed local judges to judge more local trials than would normally be allowed. Normally you have to kind of bring in new judges so you don't have the same person for every single trial. That's been lifted to where judges can judge their local trials, because bringing judges in right now is not the easiest thing to do. So everything in regards to that is staying in place. So we're trying to support clubs as much as we can, and we are trying to support our judges, exhibitors, competitors as much as we can. Some of these rules have been a positive change and will most likely stay even past COVID. People being able to carry the leash on the course with them, for the most part, is a really positive change. It's been really great in all the places that I personally have seen it. And we haven't really gotten very many complaints. We've got a couple things here or there of people who have kind of done weird things, but it's not really a widespread issue. It's more of just needing to educate one or two exhibitors, but not so much a widespread issue. Other rules, you may be aware that we allow judges to run their dogs in the trial, as long as there was someone there who could judge their runs. It needed to be either an experienced exhibitor or another judge, which was much more preferred. Rules like that possibly might stay, but those need to be looked into much more deeply than things like carrying a leash onto the course, because those have a much bigger lasting effect. So we kind of need to take our time on that, bring in some nice guidelines, have a really nice set standard for everything, and then see if we can make it work within our current rules and keep everyone happy. So we can make no guarantees on that kind of stuff, but hopefully all the positive changes that we've made, we can keep. As far as how long these adjustments and changes are going to last, we really want to go 90 days without a trial cancellation before we start reining them back in. Right now we haven't even gone, I think we've gone 4 days without a cancellation, so we're a long ways off. So we'd really like to see a decent amount of time pass to know that, okay, trials are happening consistently now. People have those opportunities to trial in person. It's safe for everyone to do so. No one's being endangered by doing so. And once that happens, the VT rules will be the first to get reined back in a little bit. Certain things we might keep, some of the small space courses, that might possibly stay. But definitely some of the rules in regards to how many VTs you can submit a month, and definitely the rules for submitting VTs when there is a trial in your area. Those will be reinstated as soon as we feel it's safe to do so. And then just kind of a miscellaneous thing to touch on that does come into play with VTs. We get multiple requests a month for small space courses. Currently our smallest ones are 60 by 60, which is not exactly small. It's a pretty big area. It's definitely bigger than most people's backyards. The struggle we have there is that while we really do want to give that opportunity for people to enjoy Nadac and try and run Nadac, Nadac is a big space venue. Our spacing between obstacles is on par, is pretty large. 21 feet is kind of what we look for everywhere, not just as like a max or anything. 21 is just kind of what we'd like to see everywhere. So when you start talking about a 30 foot by 30 foot space, you can't really do Nadac skills in a 30 foot by 30 foot space. Your dogs are basically only able to run forward 20 feet, and then they're immediately going to have to turn pretty sharply because they're about to run into a wall that's 10 feet past that. And we won't even talk about how they did the first 10 feet that don't exist because there's only 30 feet there. So it's really not possible to do Nadac style skills in a small space. If we did, one of the smaller courses that we did towards the beginning, because everyone was requesting it, it really was not a Nadac course. It was very much go jump, tight, get out tunnel, tight, do this. Everything was just tight, 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 tight. Which does happen in Nadac, especially lately. We've been bringing in a lot more tight turns, a lot more collected sequences. But we usually like to pair up those collected sequences with extended sequences so the dogs can extend out, pick up some speed, stretch. And we really don't like to do just turn, 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 turn. We really like to do, here's an extended sequence with a collection and a turn, or here's an extended sequence with a collection into an extended turn. It's stuff that is challenging for people, and that's kind of like what we like to do, is challenge people. So just having everything in that small space is just really not possible. So I don't foresee our small space courses getting any smaller than 60 by 60, because it really wouldn't be a Nadac course at that point. So we do apologize for that, but at a certain point we do have to hold our standards for the venue and kind of our moral compass for what this venue looks for in a course. You know, we have to hold that to a certain standard. We can't just throw that out the window because, you know, people are requesting it. We kind of have to stay within our own guidelines. So we are sorry, but hopefully the 60 by 60s are opening up enough availability that people are still able to maybe go to a friend's house, or maybe there's an indoor facility, something like that. We are currently allowing, if you're doing VT runs, that you can use slatted equipment, because we know a lot of people, their local venue does not have Nadac rubber equipment with no slats. So for VTs, those are currently allowed. You know, we're really trying to do everything we can to make it as available as possible while sticking to our own kind of moral code for what the courses should be. Championships. Currently, championships in Springfield, Ohio is a tentative yes. The site is booked. It's been booked for 4 years at this point. So that's definitely good. And we are kind of making plans. We're just not diving head first. We're still right in the middle of this pandemic. And we just really are playing it safe to see how things happen in the next few months. There are a lot of things that could change between now and championships. So we just don't want to put all of our cards on the table and then get dealt a bad hand. We are hopeful, though, that with the release of the vaccine, just the fact that our event is a lot later in the year compared to some of the other events, you know, September, October is where we always fall. We're just kind of hopeful that it's going to work out. And also in regards to just social distancing and everything else, Ohio really is the site to be. If we're having any issues with that, there's basically triple the amount of stalls that we would ever need. So if we need to have one person in a stall with a blank and then kind of space everybody out like that, we have the ability to do that there. Whereas going somewhere like Gillette, which we love Gillette, it's an amazing facility. You know, we are currently booked there for the future as well. But where everyone has to crate in the single room, everyone's right next to each other with no space. It's definitely a more confined area. That would be kind of worst scenario right now with everything happening with the pandemic. It is worth noting, if running the event puts our competitors, judges, staff members at an unnecessary risk, sort of like what we were at in 2020, it will be canceled. I will hate to do it. We hated doing it in 2020. It was probably the, hardest decision we've ever had to make in regards to Nadac, but it was the right decision. We stand by that decision. And if it comes down to it in 2021, that is what needs to happen again, then sadly, that is what will happen. But like I said, we are fairly hopeful with everything coming out and the timeline that we've got, that we'll be able to hold the event. So fingers crossed for that. We are going to open up the online entry forms around the same time as normal, which is kind of mid-March. There's not going to be a payment option, though. That was a very large headache last year, sending refunds to everyone for pre-trial championships. It was just a lot of refunds to do, and it's definitely not an enjoyable experience. But everyone did get refunded 100%. So we are very happy we were able to do that. We didn't have to keep money from anyone. Everyone got their refund, which is very nice to do. So we're not going to take any money when we open up the online entry. You'll be able to put your dog's info in, your info, what you want to enter, etc., just like normal. You just won't have a place for your credit card. And then as the year goes on, I would say mid-July, maybe early August, sometime around there, if everything is looking good and we are confident that the event can be held, then we'll start sending out invoices and you'll be able to pay at that time. Yeah, that's pretty much it for championships. I'm sure there's going to be more championship specific questions. There always is in regards to team, running orders, everything else. Usually the forum is the best place to get all of that information. There is also an info sheet on the Nadac Championships page on the website that has almost 98% of the info that you'll ever need in regards to championships. There's very little that's missing from that. But feel free to send us an email, post something on the forum. We're always happy to help out with any questions you may have. All right, we're almost done. We've only got 2 more things. Top 10 for this year. Top 10 normally does not include VT runs. We've just always, for the past few years, we've just said we want it to be trials only. That's really what we encourage, is people to go to trials, get that atmosphere, get that training experience. That's really what we encourage. But as you can probably guess, everything was canceled in 2020. Over half, I can't remember the exact number, but it was way over half of our trials were canceled. So if we did not allow VT in our top 10, we'd be kind of doing a bit of a disservice to all the people who took all the time this year to go out in their backyards and set courses. So VT will be included in the top 10 this year. And yeah, that's about it. We'll have to see how 2021 goes. Ideally, I would really love for the 2021 top 10 to be trials only. That's really what we strive for. But we're only 10 days into this month currently, and things are not looking so hot in regards to trial cancellations. So that'll just be one of those things that gets updated through the year as we go. We are making a expansion to a rule that we changed last year. It ended up going over incredibly well. Basically, any concerns that were voiced all got discredited extremely quickly once this rule went into place and we were able to see it at real life trials, and that is toys in the ring. We started out only allowing toys in the ring at the intro and novice levels. Because we didn't really, just again, kind of like we're doing with the other change, we just wanted to start slow, see how it goes, and then if needed, we could expand. It's gone extremely well. For the most part, everyone has done an extremely good job with being respectful when they bring their toys into the ring, keeping it, keeping everything moving and doing a really good job with that. So we are going to expand this rule to include open and elite. So you can now have a toy in the ring at all levels. All the same rules still apply. You will still need to declare that you have a toy. It does become an elimination at that point. And you will have your 60 seconds to kind of do what you wish. Everything else is still the same. Don't throw your toy towards the start line dog. Don't throw a frisbee halfway across the ring and take out a bar setter. Everything's still the same. We still want toys to kind of stay fairly close to the dog and the handler, so there's no safety issues. And then obviously don't use a toy that's going to cause a safety issue. A ball with a big long rope on it that's going to get wrapped around a jump standard and chase your dog across the ring. Bad. Don't do that. Again, the few issues we have had with this change have been pretty small, and it's really just more educating a couple exhibitors. It's really not any kind of a widespread issue. Now, that change will be effective immediately. I'm not sure what today is because it's COVID and who knows what day it is anymore. It is Monday. So if you're trialing this weekend, if you're lucky enough to actually have a trial in your area, you can do this weekend. Effective immediately. And that should be it for our list, everybody. We really want to thank everybody again for the past, I guess it's been a year, almost a year now, pretty close. We're only a couple months shy. It's been a ride for sure. We definitely could not have done it without everyone's support. No hyperbole whatsoever. This is not an exaggeration in any way. If all of you did not show up and do VTs the way that you have, Nadac would no longer be around at this point. There's no doubt about that, because trial income is not enough to cover our basic expenses during a pandemic, as we found out. Once everything shuts down and we're not able to have trials, we have a little bit of a financial issue there. So we really appreciate everyone who continue to support us. We just want you to know every VT run that you submitted is allowing us to still be here today. So that means a lot. We are going to have a few things coming out for the VT program, hopefully in the next week or two. I'm still working on them at the moment to kind of expand some of the awards that can be received in the mail. As you may know, we've been sending out Natch ribbons whenever you earn any kind of a championship title. We're going to try and expand that a little bit to try and allow to also send out title ribbons and possibly Q ribbons. They're probably not going to be ribbons. They're going to be something that we're making here in-house that's kind of right over there in the secret corner. That way we can bring the cost down a little bit. That way we can financially make it feasible to do. But we do have some updates with that, so hopefully that'll keep everybody interested in case everything gets shut down again. We can keep going. So again, thank you everybody. It's been a heck of a year. We could not have done it without you. Please stay safe, and we will see you when we see you.